Hello viewers, this is Bhavna Mehran and it is my very first tutorial which is based on the basics of economics. I will be covering all the basic concepts related to economics in my upcoming economics video series, which will be quite helpful to you to understand what is this economics subject all about. So let's begin. This first video will be covering the meaning and the major definitions given by some of the renowned economists. So, starting with the meaning of economics. Economics is an English word which is derived from the ancient Greek word oikonomia, which means the management of a family or a household. Economics is often regarded as the queen of social sciences, as it is a social science which is concerned with economic questions like the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Basically, how individuals, businesses, governments, and nations make choices on allocating resources to satisfy their wants and needs. So, at large, economics is the study of economic behavior of the individuals and the society. Here are four basic and important definitions of economics. Starting with wealth definition or wealth oriented definition given by Adam Smith, who is popularly known as the father of economics, followed by welfare definition given by Alfred Marshall, then scarcity definition given by Lionel Robbins, and at last the growth oriented and the modern definition and the latest definition we can say that is given by Paul A. Samuelson. So, starting with the first wealth oriented definition. On the earliest recorded economic thinkers was the 8th century BC Greek farmer poet Hesiod, who wrote that labor, materials, and time needed to be allocated efficiently to overcome scarcity. But the founding of modern Western economics occurred much later, generally credited to the publication of Scottish publisher Adam Smith's 1776 book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, which is popularly known as the Wealth of Nations. Earlier, economics was not taught as a separate subject, but with the efforts of Adam Smith, it has got a recognition as a new and important discipline. That is why Adam Smith is known as the father of economics. He supported economics as a study of wealth in the late 18th century. Since then, the subject has traveled along, and this Smithian definition serves our purpose no longer. Over the passage of time, the focus of attention has been changed. As a result, different definitions have evolved. Now, coming to the features of wealth oriented definition. First is the study of wealth, as the name itself suggests. According to this definition, economics is the study of wealth only. The main objective of economics is to examine how people earn wealth and spend it. Wealth has been made the focal point of economics by the classical economists. Then moving on to second feature, that is causes of wealth. Economists seek to examine causes which lead to an increased wealth. Wealth can be increased by its production and consumption. The wealth definition of economics considers an economic man who is aware of his self-interest. The economic man tries to achieve his self-respect by increasing his material gains through acquisition of wealth. Now, talking about the criticisms, this definition is too narrow as it does not consider the major problems faced by a society or an individual. Smith's definition is based primarily on the assumption of an economic man who is concerned with wealth hunting. That is why critics condemned economics as the bread and the butter of science. Literary figures and social reformers branded economics as dismal science and the gospel of mammon, since the Smithian definition led us to emphasize on the material aspect of human life, that is, generation of wealth. On the other hand, it ignored the non material aspect of life. Above all, as a science of wealth, it taught selfishness and love for money. That's why John Ruskin called economics a bastard science. Coming to the next criticism, the central focus of economics should be on scarcity and choice. Since scarcity is the fundamental economic problem of any society, choice is unavoidable. Adam Smith ignored this simple but essential aspect of any economic system. Now, moving on to welfare oriented definition given by Alfred Marshall, professor of political economy at Cambridge University. Alfred Marshall, in his book Principles of Economics, published in 1890, placed emphasis on human activities or human welfare rather than on wealth. Marshall defines economics as a study of men as they live and move and think in the ordinary business of life. He argued that economics, on one side, is a study of wealth, and on the other side, is a study of man. According to Marshall, wealth is not an end in itself, as was thought by classical authors. It is a means to an end. Now, talking about the features, economics is a social science since it studies the actions of human beings. So, it is basically the study of mankind. Next is economics studies the ordinary business of life since it takes into account the money earning and money spending activities of man. Then, moving on to the third important feature, economics studies only the material part of human welfare, which is measurable in terms of money. It neglects other activities of human welfare which are not quantifiable in terms of money. As per Marshall, economics is not concerned with the nature and the cause of the wealth of nations, but the primary objective is the welfare of mankind. Marshall has limited the scope of economics to those factors and activities which are amenable to measurement in terms of money. That's why political, social, cultural, and religious activities of human beings are excluded from the purview of economics as they are not the subject of measurement in terms of money. Again, Marshall's definition was also having some criticisms, though this definition of economics given by Marshall was hailed as a revolutionary one. It was criticized on several grounds. As first one is economics regarded as a social science only. Marshall has been criticized for treating economics as a social science rather than a human science. A social science studies the action of individuals living in organized communities as members of the society, whereas a human science studies the human being irrespective of whether he is living as a member of an organized community or living in isolation. And he ignored this very important point. Now, moving on to the next criticism, Marshall's notion of material welfare came in for sharp criticism at the hands of Lionel Robbins in 1932. Robbins argued that economics should encompass non material welfare also. In real life, it is difficult to segregate material welfare from non material welfare, like the services of doctors, teachers, lawyers, etc. These are not material services, yet they also fulfill our urgent needs and thereby promote welfare. So, if only the materialist definition is accepted, the scope and subject matter of economics would be narrower, or a great part of economic life of man would remain outside the domain of economics. Another condemnation was on the distinction between economic and non economic activities, which Robbins found completely unscientific, illogical, and impractical. Now, Robbins has also criticized welfare definition as that restricted the people to study of economics. Economics studies several other activities which hardly promote economic welfare. Many goods like liquor, cigarette, and guns do not promote welfare. Yet production of these goods constitute economic activity, and hence it is substituted in economics. So welfare oriented definition showed a restricted scope of economics. And finally, it ignores the problem of scarcity. Similar like Smithian definition of economics, Marshall's definition also ignored the fundamental problem of scarcity of any economy. It was Robbins who gave a scarcity definition of economics. Robbins defined economics in terms of allocation of scarce resources to satisfy unlimited human wants. Now, moving on to the third important definition, that is scarcity oriented definition, which was completely ignored by Adam Smith and Alfred Marshall, was given by Lionel Robbins. It is the most accepted definition of economics. In 1932, in his book, An Essay on the Nature and Significance of Economic Science, according to Robbins, neither wealth nor human welfare should be considered as the subject matter of economics. His definition runs in terms of scarcity. Economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Uh, you can say with the definition, one can build up the following propositions of scarcity oriented definition. First one is unlimited ends and wants. Human wants are unlimited, wants multiply, luxuries become necessities. There is no end of wants. If food were plentiful, if there were enough capital in business, if there were abundant money and time, there was not have been any scope for studying economics. Prehistoric people had wants. Modern people also have wants. Only wants change and they are limitless. Now, the means or the resources to satisfy wants are scarce in relation to their demands. If there would have been plenty number of resources, there would not have been any economic problems. Thus, scarcity of resources is the fundamental economic problem of any society. Even an affluent society experiences resource scarcity, and this scarcity of resources gives rise to many choice problems. Since the prehistoric days, one notices constant effort of satisfying human wants through the scarcest resources which have alternative uses. Land is scarce in relation to demand. However, this land may be put to different alternative uses. A particular plot of land can be either used for jute cultivation or steel production. If it is used for steel production, the country will have to sacrifice the production of jute. So, resources are to be allocated in such a manner that the immediate wants are fulfilled. Thus, the problem of scarcity of resources gives rise to the problem of choice. Now, society will have to decide which wants are to be satisfied immediately and which wants are to be postponed for the TV time being. This is the choice problem of an economy. Scarcity and choice go hand in hand in each and every morning. In view of this, it is said that economics is fundamentally a study of scarcity and of the problems to which scarcity gives rise. Thus, central government of economics is an opportunity cost or optimism. This scarcity definition of economics has widened the scope judgment. Robbins made economics a positive science. Or we can also say that by allocating the positive problems of economics, which are the problems of scarcity and choice, Robbins brought economics nearer to science. No wonder this definition has attracted a large number of people into Robbins' camp. But again, everything is having pros and cons, so it is again having some criticisms. First one is restricted subject matter of economics. In his bid to raise economics to the status of a positive science, Robbins deliberately downplayed the importance of economics as a social science. Being a social science, economics must study social relation. His definition places too much emphasis on individual choice. In the ultimate choice or analysis, scarcity problem is the social problem rather than an individual problem. So social problem give issues to social choice, and this was the missing part. And Robbins could not explain social problems as well as social choice. Now, Robbins made economies neutral between ends. But economists cannot remain neutral being between ends. They must prescribe policies and make value judgments as to what is good for the society and what is bad. So, economics should pronounce both positive and negative statements rather than on focusing on the limited aspect of scarcity. Then, last one is, I hope there is no confusion so far. And last one criticism is Robbins has treated economics as a science only, but in fact it is both science and art. These days, economics believe that economics is also concerned with the solution of economics problems. Today, the economists believe in executing to what they mean. Now, modern definition of economics given by Samuelson or Paul A. Samuelson. There are many common points in the definition of Robbins and Samuelson. Samuelson's definition tells us that economics is a social science and it is mainly concerned with the way how society employs its limited resources for alternative uses. All this we find in the definition So, all this you find in the definition of Robbins, but Samuelson goes a step further and discusses how a society uses limited resources for producing goods and services for present and future consumption of various group people or groups. An interesting point that Samuelson tells is that the society may or may not make use of money depends on the way of their own creativity. Now, a very important point, NEW, that is new. And what is this new? Net economic welfare. Samuelson has coined the concept of new. According to Samuelson, new is an adjusted measure of total national output that includes only consumption and investment items that contribute directly to economic welfare. He says that as we become rich, generally we prefer leisure to income. When we allocate more time for leisure, gross national product, that is GNP, may come down, but welfare goes on. So when we estimate GNP, we must include satisfaction derived from leisure by giving it a value in net economic welfare. Now, the concept of net economic welfare has become very important in the study of national income. Therefore, we can say that Samuelson's definition of economics emphasizes on some important aspects of life like economic problem, universal problem, long-term perspective, and thus gives a broader perspective to economics. So that's it for today. In the next video, I will be covering some more basic concepts of economics. Till then, maintain social distancing and stay safe. Thank you.